You must fund her divorce, or you're no longer in this family." My mother shrieked, her hand striking my face. The impact echoed through my home office, 5 concealed cameras streaming directly to my legal team. What transpired next would alter our family permanently. The sting on my cheek was still fresh, a burning testament to a betrayal I never thought possible. In the suffocating quiet of my home office, I heard the faint whir of the hidden cameras, dutifully recording the moment my own mother brought her hand across my face. It was 3 weeks to the day since I'd installed them, following my attorney's advice to document Charlotte's increasingly aggressive demands for money. I never imagined that documentation would include an assault by my own mother. My voice, to my own surprise, came out steady, a low, incredulous whisper. "Did you really just hit me?" But inside, a tremor started, a deep vibration that shook my very core. My fingers, usually so precise on the keyboard, now clenched the desk's edge, white-knuckled and shaking with a force that felt beyond my control. A cold dread bloomed in my stomach. Was this real? Had she really just done that? Mom's expression didn't soften. If anything, her jaw set harder, her eyes blazing with a righteousness that chilled me to the bone. "You deserve worse than that," she hissed, her voice cutting through the thick air. "Your sister needs you, and you're sitting here like some heartless accountant, counting your money while her life falls apart." Just then, Charlotte emerged from behind Mom, her face a mask of carefully constructed misery, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was a performance I'd seen 1,000 times. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking perfectly on cue. "Eric cleaned out our joint account. Sophie needs new shoes. Dylan's asthma medication costs $200. I'm begging you." The sheer audacity of it left me momentarily speechless. Here's the thing about growing up with an older sister like Charlotte: you learn her patterns. She'd been manipulating our parents since she was 12, perfecting the art of the victim narrative, while I, the quieter, more observant one, stayed in her shadow. This dynamic, where one family member consistently positions themselves as a perpetual victim to elicit resources and sympathy, often relies on a psychological concept known as covert manipulation. It's a subtle but powerful tactic that chips away at the target's resolve, leveraging emotional bonds to control outcomes. She'd borrowed $5,000 from me 4 years ago for emergency dental work that, surprise, turned out to be a vacation to Cancun. She'd even stolen my identity when we were in our 20s to open 3 credit cards, leaving me to clean up that financial wreckage. Then she'd convinced our parents that I was selfish and cold because I'd refused to co-sign on her mortgage after the identity theft incident. And now, as if on some twisted schedule, she was getting divorced from Eric, and somehow, this had become my financial responsibility too. But what came next was a deeper cut. "Charlotte, we've been over this," I said, keeping my voice level, fighting to maintain a composure I didn't feel. "I gave you $3,000 last month. I paid your electricity bill. I bought groceries for your kids. I'm not financing your entire divorce." Mom's laugh was harsh, bitter, devoid of any warmth. $3,000? You live in this mansion, drive that expensive car, take vacations twice a year. Your sister gave up her career to raise her children, to support her husband, and now she has nothing. The least you can do is help her get back on her feet. The mansion was a modest 3-bedroom house I'd saved for 7 years to buy. The expensive car was a certified pre-owned sedan I'd purchased with cash. The vacations were camping trips to state parks. But facts had never mattered much to my mother when Charlotte needed rescuing. It was infuriating. "I'm not paying for her divorce lawyer," I stated, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. "Eric has to pay spousal support. The court already ordered it." Charlotte's voice rose to a shriek, startling me. "The court process takes months. What am I supposed to do until then? Live in a shelter? Let my children starve?" It was all a performance, a carefully constructed lie. She lived in the house they'd bought together, the one Eric had moved out of. She received temporary support of $2,000 a month while the divorce proceedings continued. Our parents had already given her $10,000. My Aunt Paula had even contributed $5,000. But Charlotte's spending habits hadn't changed to match her new circumstances, and she refused to consider that maybe she should. You need a budget, I said, my patience wearing thin. Get a job. There are lots of options. Mom's hand twitched, and for a terrifying second, I wondered if she'd hit me again. Instead, she stepped closer, her finger jabbing toward my face, the air between us crackling with her fury. How dare you speak to your sister like that? She's vulnerable right now. She's traumatized, and you sit here in your comfortable life, judging her while she's drowning. All the while, the cameras were recording everything. I'd positioned them carefully, one on the bookshelf behind me, one hidden in the air purifier near the window, one in the picture frame on the wall, one in the desk lamp, and another in the ceiling smoke detector. My attorney had the access codes. He was probably watching this entire spectacle unfold in real time. This awareness brought a strange mix of fear and resolve. I'm not judging anyone, I replied, my voice dangerously calm. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. Charlotte chose that moment to sink into the chair across from my desk, her shoulders shaking with sobs. You were always Dad's favorite, always the smart one, the responsible one. I was just the pretty one, the one who didn't matter. Now you have everything and I have nothing and you won't even help me. The revisionist history made my stomach churn. Dad had never played favorites. If anything, he'd spent more time trying to help Charlotte navigate her impulsive decisions, bailing her out of one crisis after another until his death 5 years ago. He'd left us equal inheritances, which Charlotte had blown through in 18 months on a kitchen renovation and a boat Eric wanted. I've helped you repeatedly, I insisted. I'm still helping you. What I won't do is pay $20,000 for your divorce attorney when you're capable of working and providing for yourself. Capable. Mom's voice dropped to something dangerous and low, a growl. She has 2 young children. She has no recent work experience. She has trauma from her marriage. You want her to what? Work at a fast food restaurant, humiliate herself while you live in luxury. The word luxury almost made me laugh out loud, a bitter, hollow sound. I built my career through night classes and weekend certifications while working full-time. I'd lived with roommates until I was 32. I'd brought lunch from home every single day for a decade. Every dollar I had, I'd earned through careful planning and sacrifice. Charlotte had married Eric right out of college. She'd worked for 2 years before getting pregnant with Sophie, then decided to be a stay-at-home mother. That was her choice, and I'd never criticized it. But somehow her choices had become my obligation. It was a classic example of emotional blackmail, where family members leverage guilt, obligation, and fear to pressure another into compliance, often under the guise of family loyalty. Listen to me very carefully, I said, standing up, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. I love Charlotte. I love Sophie and Dylan. I will continue to help in reasonable ways, but I am not liquidating my savings account to fund a divorce that Eric is legally required to pay for through spousal support and child support. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken threats. Then you're not part of this family anymore. Mom's words hit like a second slap, harder than the first, a cold, calculated blow. If you abandon your sister in her darkest hour, you're no daughter of mine. You can forget about holidays, forget about birthday calls, forget about being auntie to Sophie and Dylan. We're done. The ultimatum hung in the air, suffocating me. I'd known it was coming. Charlotte had been building to this moment for weeks, poisoning Mom against me with carefully crafted stories about my cruelty and selfishness. Still, hearing it spoken aloud made something crack inside my chest. That's your choice, I said quietly, the words tasting like ash. But you need to leave my house now. Both of you. Charlotte's head snapped up, her tears stopping as if someone had flipped a switch. What? She demanded, all pretense gone. Leave. You came here to threaten me, to assault me, to manipulate me. I'm done with this conversation. Mom moved toward me again, and I instinctively stepped back, putting the desk between us. Don't you dare kick us out. This is about family. This is about loyalty. No, I countered, my voice rising. This is about boundaries. I've asked you to leave. If you don't, I'll call the police. The shocked silence that followed felt thick enough to choke on. Charlotte stood slowly, her expression shifting from fake vulnerability to genuine, venomous rage. You'd actually do that? Call the cops on your own mother. If she hits me again? Absolutely. Mom's face flushed dark red, a dangerous shade. You're making a huge mistake. When you come crawling back, begging to be part of our lives again, don't expect forgiveness. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. I'm not the one who needs forgiveness, I stated, my voice barely a whisper. They left. Charlotte grabbed her purse and stormed out without another word. Mom paused at the door, looking back at me with something that twisted my gut, pure disgust. Your father would be ashamed of you. That one hurt. I'd adored my father, and he'd always been proud of my accomplishments, proud of my independence. But Mom had always resented that bond, always felt left out of our connection. After his death, she'd leaned more heavily on Charlotte, finding purpose in managing her endless dramas. Dad taught me to stand up for myself, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. That's exactly what I'm doing. The door slammed shut, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. I sank back into my chair, my whole body shaking with adrenaline, the fight-or-flight response still raging. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney, Richard. Got everything recorded. That was assault and battery. Also, extortion attempt. Call me when you're ready to talk next steps. I stared at the message, trying to process what had just happened. My mother had hit me. My sister had tried to blackmail me. They both threatened to cut me out of the family unless I handed over money I'd worked years to save. The sad thing was, part of me wanted to give in. Part of me wanted to write the check, smooth everything over, pretend this hadn't happened. That's what I'd always done. Kept the peace, absorbed the damage, made myself smaller so Charlotte could shine brighter. But I was so tired of shrinking. I called Richard. He answered on the first ring, his voice crisp and professional. Are you all right? Not really, but I will be. That was clear-cut assault. If you want to press charges, we have everything documented. Multiple camera angles, clear audio, unprovoked attack. The idea of pressing charges against my own mother made me feel sick despite everything. I need time to think about that. Understood. But there's something else. The extortion attempt, demanding money under threat of familial excommunication, combined with the assault, creates a pattern of coercive behavior. If your sister continues this campaign against you, especially if she involves other family members or tries to damage your reputation professionally, you have grounds for a restraining order. It won't come to that. Even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. I hope you're right. In the meantime, I'd recommend changing your locks. If your mother has a key to your house, she's demonstrated she can't be trusted with that access. He was right. Mom had a spare key for emergencies. I'd given it to her 3 years ago when I went on vacation and never asked for it back. The thought of her letting herself in, of finding her waiting in my living room with more demands or accusations, made my skin crawl. I'll call a locksmith today, I said, a shiver running down my spine. Good. Document everything going forward. Save all texts, all voicemails, all emails. If anyone else in your family contacts you about this situation, be polite but firm. Don't engage in arguments. Don't defend yourself extensively. Just restate your boundaries and disengage. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, replaying the confrontation in my mind, the echoes of their accusations still ringing in my ears. Charlotte's performance had been flawless, as always. The tears, the trembling voice, the appeals to sisterhood and family loyalty. Mom's rage had seemed genuine, fueled by whatever story Charlotte had been feeding her for weeks. But underneath it all was a simple, painful truth. They believed I owed them. Not because of anything I'd done wrong, but because I'd succeeded where Charlotte had struggled. My stability was an insult to her chaos. My savings were an affront to her spending. My boundaries were a betrayal of family solidarity. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from the dark spiral of my thoughts. This time it was Jennifer from work, my colleague and closest friend. Coffee. You sound like you need coffee. My brow furrowed. How did you know something was wrong? You have a very specific typing rhythm when you're stressed. It came through in your last email. Meet me at Morrison's in 20. Jennifer was the friend who'd helped me see Charlotte's patterns for what they truly were, who'd encouraged me to stop setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. She'd been through her own family drama, a brother who'd stolen from her, parents who'd enabled him, and she understood the complex guilt that came with protecting yourself from people you loved. Morrison's Coffee House sat 3 blocks from my neighborhood, a brick building with mismatched furniture and the best lattes in the city. Jennifer was already there when I arrived, 2 steaming cups on the table, a concerned expression on her face. "What happened?" she asked as I slid into the seat across from her. I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush, detailing the slap, the threats, the cruel ultimatum. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each painful detail. "You're pressing charges," she said when I finished, her tone leaving no room for argument. "It wasn't a question. I don't know yet." "Yes, you do. If some random person walked into your house and hit you, you'd call the cops immediately. The fact that it's your mother doesn't make assault legal or acceptable. But she's my mother. So what? That gives her the right to physically attack you when you don't hand over money? Think about what you're saying." I wrapped my hands around the warm coffee cup, letting the heat seep into my fingers. If I press charges, that's it. There's no coming back from that. The family will never forgive me. Jennifer met my gaze directly. "The family already cut you off unless you pay Charlotte's bills. They fired first. You're just refusing to be their ATM." She was right, but knowing it didn't make the decision easier. My mind immediately went to Sophie and Dylan, to the thought of missing their birthdays and school plays, of becoming the villain in their childhood stories. Charlotte would tell them I'd abandoned them, that I'd chosen money over family, and they'd believe her because they were kids and she was their mother. "What would you do?" I asked, desperate for clarity. Jennifer didn't hesitate. "I'd document everything, press charges, and get a restraining order if needed. Then I'd send one clear message to your mother and sister explaining that you're willing to maintain a relationship with boundaries, but only if the harassment stops. If they choose to walk away, that's on them. You gave them multiple chances. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not easy." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're a good person. You've been generous beyond reason. The fact that they're treating you this way says everything about them and nothing about you." Over the next 3 days, the messages started pouring in, a relentless barrage that chipped away at my resolve. First from Mom, long rambling texts about betrayal and disappointment, about how I'd broken her heart and destroyed our family. Then from Charlotte, alternating between desperate begging and furious anger, between sentimental reminders of our childhood bond and vicious accusations of cruelty. Then, as if on cue, from my Aunt Paula, who'd apparently heard a very different version of events. "Your mother called me in tears," Paula's voicemail said, her voice laced with judgment. "I can't believe you turned your back on Charlotte like this. She needs us. Family helps family. I'm very disappointed in you." None of them mentioned the slap. None of them acknowledged the threats. In Charlotte's version, I'd apparently screamed at her, called her horrible names, and thrown her out of my house for the crime of merely asking for help. Mom's version had me laughing at Charlotte's pain, mocking her for her divorce, celebrating her suffering. The lies were so absurd, so outlandish, they would have been funny if they hadn't hurt so much. I didn't respond to the messages. Richard had advised against it, and Jennifer heartily agreed. Any response would just give them ammunition, something to twist and weaponize. Instead, I saved everything, adding it to the growing digital file of documentation, and tried to focus on work. But work was harder than usual. My mind kept returning to the confrontation, a constant loop of fear and anger. I kept checking my phone, expecting more messages, more attacks. I jumped when my doorbell rang, worried it would be Mom forcing another confrontation. I'd had the locks changed, but that didn't stop her from pounding on the door at 10 p.m. on Thursday night, demanding I let her in. I didn't answer. I stood in my darkened hallway, listening to her shout through the door about cowardice and shame, about how Dad would be disgusted with me. Eventually, she left. I checked the security camera footage later and watched her sit on my porch steps for 40 minutes, crying into her phone, before driving away. The psychological toll of being stalked in your own home by your parent was immense. Friday afternoon, Charlotte showed up at my workplace. I saw her through the glass doors of the lobby, pacing near the reception desk, clearly waiting for me to leave for the day. Jennifer spotted her too, her eyes narrowing. "Want me to call security?" she asked, already reaching for her phone. "Not yet," I said, a part of me still clinging to the hope of a rational conversation. "Let me see what she wants." I regretted that decision the moment I walked outside. Charlotte rushed toward me, her expression desperate and wild, a stark contrast to the calm, professional facade I tried to maintain. "Please, you have to listen to me. Eric's threatening to take the kids. His lawyer says I'm an unfit mother because I can't provide for them financially. If you don't help me, I'll lose Sophie and Dylan." The accusation was calculated to destroy me. Charlotte knew how much I loved her children, knew I'd do anything to protect them. But I'd learned, finally, to look past the emotional manipulation to the cold, hard facts underneath. "Eric can't take the kids just because you're between jobs," I said, my voice strained. "That's not how custody works. His lawyer says otherwise. His lawyer says a mother who can't feed her children, who can't pay for their school supplies, who relies on handouts." "You're not relying on handouts. You're receiving court-ordered support. You have savings from Mom and Paula. You have options. I have nothing." The shriek drew attention from people entering and leaving the building, their heads turning in our direction. "Eric cleaned me out. Everyone's abandoned me. My own sister won't help me. What am I supposed to do?" My patience snapped. "Get a job, Charlotte. Any job. Show the court you're making an effort." Her expression shifted, the desperation sliding away to reveal cold, pure hatred. "This is about punishment, isn't it? You're still mad about the credit cards. You're punishing me for something that happened 15 years ago. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm maintaining boundaries." "Boundaries." She spat the word like a curse, her face contorted. "That's just a fancy term for selfishness. You have so much, and you refuse to share it. What kind of person does that make you?" A security guard approached us, clearly noticing the commotion. "Is everything all right here?" "Everything's fine," Charlotte said quickly, her voice shifting instantly to something sweet and harmless. "Just having a conversation with my sister." "Ma'am, you need to step back," the guard said, addressing Charlotte. "You're causing a disturbance." She looked at me one last time, and the hatred in her eyes made me take an involuntary step backward. "You're going to regret this when Sophie and Dylan ask why their auntie doesn't love them anymore. I'll make sure they know exactly what kind of person you are." Then she left, striding across the parking lot to her SUV, the one she'd insisted she needed for the kids' safety, the one with monthly payments she could barely afford, and peeled out with a screech of tires. Jennifer appeared beside me, her hand on my arm. That was intense. She threatened to turn my niece and nephew against me. She'll probably try, but kids grow up. Eventually, they ask their own questions and form their own conclusions. If you stay consistent, stay honest, they'll figure it out. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to think that someday Sophie and Dylan would understand why their aunt had stepped back, why family relationships were more complicated than their mother had taught them. But the wait seemed impossibly long and the cost impossibly high. That evening, I made my decision. I called Richard and told him I wanted to press charges for the assault. He walked me through the process, explained what to expect, and assured me I was making the right choice. Then, with his input, I drafted a message to send to both Mom and Charlotte, carefully worded. "I love both of you, but I will not tolerate physical violence, harassment, or threats. I'm willing to maintain a relationship if we can establish healthy boundaries and mutual respect. However, any further attempts to coerce, manipulate, or intimidate me will result in legal action. I hope we can move forward constructively." I sent it at 8 p.m. By 8:15, my phone was exploding with responses. "Mom, legal action against your own family? You've lost your mind. Charlotte, this is proof you never loved us. You're not my sister anymore. Paula, I'm ashamed to be related to you." More messages followed, each one angrier than the last. I muted the conversations and tried to breathe through the anxiety clawing at my chest. The police report was filed on Monday morning. The officer who took my statement was professional and kind, reviewing the camera footage with careful attention. "This is pretty clear-cut," she said. "Unprovoked assault in your own home. Does she have a history of violence?" "No. This was the first time. Often is, until it isn't." "You did the right thing documenting everything." A warrant was issued. Mom was arrested Tuesday afternoon and released on her own recognizance, pending a court date. Charlotte's social media erupted with posts about police brutality and family betrayal, painting Mom as a victim of my vindictiveness. The comment section filled with people I'd never met, calling me horrible names, threatening me with karmic justice. It was a classic reputational damage campaign, leveraging public platforms to discredit me through a fabricated narrative of victimhood and villainy. I deactivated all my social media accounts. It was easier than watching people who knew nothing about the situation judge me based on Charlotte's lies. Wednesday brought a process server to Charlotte's home with a cease and desist letter, formally demanding she stop harassing me at home and work. She violated it Thursday by leaving a 20-minute voicemail on my work phone, screaming about how I destroyed our family, how Mom was having panic attacks because of the criminal charges, how Sophie cried herself to sleep asking why Auntie didn't love her anymore. The voicemail went straight to Richard, who added it to our file and filed for a restraining order. Friday afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Charlotte's sister?" A male voice, unfamiliar. "Who is asking?" "This is Eric. We need to talk." My heart rate spiked. Eric and I had barely spoken during his marriage to Charlotte, exchanging pleasantries at family gatherings, but never developing any real connection. Hearing from him now felt ominous. "I'm not sure we have anything to discuss," I said carefully. "Actually, we do. I've been hearing some interesting things from Charlotte about your financial situation, about how you're living beyond your means, about how you're desperate for money. She's planning to use that in court to prove you're an unreliable witness if I try to bring you in to testify about her spending habits." The manipulation was breathtaking. Charlotte was creating a counter-narrative, preparing to destroy my credibility before I could damage hers. "None of that is true," I said, a cold anger building inside me. "I know. I've known Charlotte for 12 years. I know how she operates, but I wanted to warn you. She's building a whole case against you. She's got your mother ready to testify that you're mentally unstable, that you've always been jealous of Charlotte, that you're making false accusations to hurt the family." "Why are you telling me this?" Eric was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm tired of watching her destroy people. She did it to me for years, and I let her because I didn't want to admit I'd married someone capable of that level of cruelty. But you're fighting back, and I think you should know what's coming." "Thank you," I said, unsure what else to say. "One more thing. If you need character witnesses, people who can testify to Charlotte's patterns, I know at least 4 other people she's burned who'd probably be willing to help. She's been pulling this routine her whole life." After we hung up, I sat with that information, feeling something shift inside me. I wasn't alone in this. Other people had seen through Charlotte's act. Other people had been damaged by her manipulations and lies. This was another dimension to the game, one I hadn't fully grasped. The following week brought an unexpected visitor to my door. Through the peephole, I could see a woman in her mid-40s, professional attire, nervous posture. She rang the bell twice before I finally opened it, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Can I help you?" "My name is Linda Morrison. Eric gave me your number, but I wanted to come in person. I'm one of Charlotte's former friends." Something in her expression, a mixture of determination and embarrassment, made me undo the chain and invite her inside. We sat in my living room, and she pulled out her phone, scrolling to a series of screenshots. Charlotte and I were close for about 3 years. Our daughters were in the same class. We had playdates, went to school events together, talked almost daily. Linda's hands shook slightly as she held the phone. Then I made the mistake of lending her money. $5,000. She said Eric's business was having a temporary cash flow problem, that they'd pay me back in 2 months. "Let me guess," I said quietly, the bitter taste of familiarity in my mouth. "You never saw it again." Worse than that. When I finally asked about it after 6 months, she told everyone I tried to extort her. Said I was obsessed with her family, that I'd given her a gift and was now trying to claim it was a loan. She showed people fake text messages. I don't know how she doctored them, where I supposedly told her to keep the money. My reputation in the school community was destroyed. Other mothers stopped talking to me. My daughter lost friends. Linda wiped her eyes, though no tears had fallen yet. Eric reached out last week. He said you were dealing with Charlotte's tactics and might need people who could testify to her patterns. I have documentation, bank transfers, original text messages, emails, everything she claimed didn't exist. Why are you willing to come forward now? Because I've watched her do this to other people for years. Because my daughter is in therapy because of the bullying that followed Charlotte's smear campaign. Because someone needs to stop her. Linda's voice hardened with resolve. I have nothing to lose at this point. She already took my reputation. She can't take anything else. Over the next hour, Linda shared the full story. Charlotte had targeted multiple women in her social circle, always with the same pattern: build trust, create a crisis, extract money or favors, then either ghost them or destroy them when they asked questions. She'd borrowed designer handbags and returned them damaged, claiming they'd arrived that way. She'd coordinated group gifts for teachers and pocketed half the money. She'd volunteered to organize a charity fundraiser and kept $3,000 of the proceeds. How did she get away with it? I asked, bewildered by the audacity. She's careful. She picks targets who won't fight back, people who are conflict-averse, who care about their reputation, who have something to lose. And she's brilliant at playing the victim. By the time anyone realizes what happened, she's already convinced everyone else that she's the injured party. Linda pulled out a business card. This is my attorney. If you need witnesses for any legal proceedings, call her. She's already prepared a detailed statement about Charlotte's history. After Linda left, I called Richard and told him about the meeting. He was quiet for a long moment before speaking. This changes things. If we can establish a pattern of fraudulent behavior, it strengthens your case considerably. It shows Charlotte's current accusations aren't isolated incidents, but part of a documented history. More importantly, it might help protect others from becoming her next targets. Do you think the judge will allow it in the restraining order hearing? Yes, I think we can argue relevance. It goes to credibility and demonstrates why you felt threatened by her escalating demands. Let me reach out to Linda's attorney and coordinate. That evening, I received an email from someone named Brittany Caldwell. The subject line read, "You don't know me, but I know your sister." The message detailed another story, nearly identical to Linda's. Charlotte had befriended Brittany at a yoga studio, cultivated a friendship over months, then asked to borrow Brittany's car for a weekend trip. She'd returned it with a cracked windshield and refused to pay for repairs, claiming it had been pre-existing damage. When Brittany pushed back, Charlotte filed a police report claiming Brittany had harassed her, had shown up at her house making threats, had tried to run her off the road. None of it was true. Brittany had security camera footage proving she'd been at work during the alleged incidents. But the accusations had been enough to cause problems in Brittany's life: a visit from police, questions from her employer, stress that contributed to a breakup with her partner. Eric tracked me down through mutual connections. The email continued. He said you might need support. I'm willing to testify if it helps. Charlotte needs to be held accountable before she ruins more lives. I forwarded the email to Richard, then sat staring at my computer screen, the sheer scope of Charlotte's manipulations unfurling before me. How many people had Charlotte damaged over the years? How many victims had stayed silent because fighting back seemed too costly? My phone rang. An unknown number, but I answered anyway, tired of screening every call. This is Sophie. The small voice on the other end made my heart stop. Grandma, let me use her phone. Sophie, honey, are you okay? I miss you. Mommy says you don't want to see us anymore because we're too expensive. She says you only care about money. The manipulation was staggering. Charlotte was using her 9-year-old daughter as a weapon, forcing her to make this call to voice accusations she couldn't possibly understand. That's not true, sweetheart. I love you and Dylan so much. The situation between the adults is complicated, but it has nothing to do with how I feel about you. Then why don't you come visit? Sophie's voice cracked. Dylan asks about you all the time. He doesn't understand why you stopped coming to soccer games. It's not that I don't want to. There are some grown-up problems that make it hard right now, but I think about you both every single day. Mommy says. Sophie's voice cut off, replaced by my mother's harsh tone. How dare you speak to her? You have a restraining order. I could have you arrested for this. She called me. I didn't initiate contact. You should have hung up immediately. But no, you had to poison her mind against her own mother. Fill her head with lies. I didn't say anything negative about Charlotte. I just told Sophie I love her. That's a lie in itself. You don't love anyone but yourself. You proved that when you had me arrested, when you took Charlotte to court, when you abandoned those children. Mom's breathing was ragged, furious. Sophie is crying now. Dylan heard her on the phone, and now he's upset, too. I hope you're happy. The line went dead. I sat holding the phone, feeling sick to my stomach. Charlotte had orchestrated that call, had coached Sophie on what to say, had used her own daughter's genuine confusion and pain as ammunition. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. I called Richard immediately. He listened to my account of the conversation, his professional calm steadying me. That was a setup. They wanted you to engage so they could claim you violated the restraining order. The fact that you kept the conversation appropriate and brief works in your favor, but document everything. Write down exactly what was said, what time the call came, the number it came from. They're using the kids to get to me. Yes, and that might actually help our case. Courts don't look favorably on parents who weaponize children in adult conflicts. If we can show Charlotte is coaching Sophie and Dylan to manipulate you, it could impact custody considerations. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. Sophie's voice kept echoing in my mind, the confusion, the sadness, the belief that I'd abandoned her. Charlotte was shaping her children's understanding of events, creating a narrative where I was the villain and she was the suffering victim. The next morning brought another development. Eric's attorney contacted Richard with a proposal. They wanted me to provide a deposition for Eric's custody modification hearing. Charlotte's financial irresponsibility and pattern of manipulation were relevant to determining the children's best interests. My testimony, combined with the other witnesses Eric had gathered, could make a significant difference. Are you willing to do it? Richard asked when he called to discuss the request. Will it help Sophie and Dylan? Potentially. If the court sees clear evidence of Charlotte's instability and manipulative behavior, they're more likely to grant Eric primary custody. That would give the kids more stability, more structure. Then, yes, I said, a surge of purpose washing over me. I'll do it. The deposition was scheduled for the following Thursday. I spent the intervening days preparing with Richard, reviewing timelines and documentation, trying to present facts without appearing vindictive. It was a delicate balance, being honest about Charlotte's behavior while not coming across as someone with an axe to grind. The morning of the deposition, I arrived at the attorney's office to find Charlotte already there with her lawyer. She stared at me with such hatred that I instinctively stepped back. Her attorney, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, looked me up and down with obvious disdain. For 3 grueling hours, they questioned me about everything: my financial situation, my relationship with Charlotte growing up, my abandonment of my niece and nephew, my decision to press assault charges against my mother. Charlotte's attorney tried repeatedly to paint me as jealous, vindictive, and unstable. But I had documentation for everything. Bank statements showing the money I'd given Charlotte over the years. Text messages showing her escalating demands. The assault captured on camera. Medical records from the therapy I'd started after the confrontation, showing the emotional toll of the harassment. You claim to love your niece and nephew. Yet you haven't seen them in months, Charlotte's attorney said at one point, her tone accusatory. Because your client and my mother have a restraining order against them. They're not allowed within 500 feet of me. Since they have primary custody of the children, that makes visits impossible. You could have petitioned for visitation rights. After your client coached my 9-year-old niece to call me and deliver a manipulative message, after she threatened to turn the children against me, I'm protecting Sophie and Dylan from being used as weapons in an adult conflict. Charlotte stood up suddenly, her chair scraping across the floor, the sound harsh in the quiet room. This is ridiculous. She's lying about everything. She's always been jealous of me. Always wanted what I had. Now she's trying to take my children. Mrs. Thompson, please sit down, her attorney said sharply, clearly mortified. No, I won't sit here and listen to this. She's destroying our family. She had our mother arrested. She refused to help me when I needed her most, and now she's conspiring with my ex-husband to steal my kids. The court reporter's fingers never stopped moving, capturing every word of Charlotte's outburst. Her attorney looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Eric's attorney spoke calmly. For the record, you're confirming that you view your sister's refusal to give you money as a hostile act? Charlotte, still standing, nodded vigorously. She has so much, and I have nothing. Yes, I think that's hostile. I think that's cruel. And you believe you're entitled to her money? We're family. Family helps each other. Even when that help involves tens of thousands of dollars. Even when the person asking has a history of not repaying loans. Charlotte's face flushed deep red. That credit card thing was 15 years ago. She needs to let it go. What about the $5,000 you borrowed 4 years ago for dental work that turned into a vacation? I don't have to answer these questions. Charlotte grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Her attorney called after her, but she was already gone, her heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. The deposition ended shortly after. Eric's attorney looked satisfied. Richard looked cautiously optimistic. I just felt utterly exhausted, drained. That went better than expected, Richard said as we walked to our cars. Her outburst undermined her entire defense strategy. She essentially confirmed everything we've been saying about her sense of entitlement and emotional instability. Will it be enough to change custody, combined with everything else? I think so. But you should prepare yourself for the fallout. She's going to blame you for losing her kids. He was right, of course. The fallout came swiftly and viciously. The restraining order hearing happened 2 weeks later. Charlotte showed up with our mother and Aunt Paula. All three dressed like they were attending a funeral, tissues clutched in their hands. They testified tearfully about my history of instability, about my jealousy towards Charlotte, about my refusal to help family members in need. Then Richard presented the evidence. The camera footage of the assault, crystal clear and undeniable. The threatening messages and voicemails. The harassment at my workplace. The timeline of escalating demands for money followed by retaliation when I refused. The judge granted the restraining order. Charlotte and Mom were required to stay at least 500 feet away from me and my home. No contact except through attorneys. No third-party harassment through other family members. Charlotte's face as the judge read the order was something I'd never forget. Pure shock, as if she couldn't believe her tactics had finally failed to work. Outside the courtroom, Paula caught up with me. I can't believe you did this. Your own mother and sister. They assaulted me. They harassed me. They made my life miserable for refusing to be their personal bank account. Family takes care of family. Family also respects boundaries. Family doesn't hit each other. Family doesn't threaten each other. She shook her head sadly. You changed. You used to be such a sweet girl. I used to be a doormat. There's a difference. 6 months have passed now. The criminal assault case against Mom resulted in a plea deal, a suspended sentence, anger management classes, and probation. She blamed me for the entire thing, sent me one final message through her attorney saying I was dead to her. Charlotte's divorce finalized 3 months ago. Eric got primary custody of Sophie and Dylan after evidence emerged of Charlotte's financial instability and refusal to seek employment. She got them every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. The court ordered her to get a job within 90 days or face contempt charges. She works at a dental office now, managing the front desk. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment and drives a used sedan. Her social media has gone quiet, the constant posts about her victim's status replaced by pictures of her kids during her custody time. I haven't spoken to her since the restraining order. I haven't spoken to Mom either. Paula sent me one last message 2 months ago. Charlotte's struggling. This is all your fault. I didn't respond. The hardest part is missing Sophie and Dylan. I think about them constantly, wonder how they're doing, whether they remember me. Eric sends me photos sometimes, a small kindness he doesn't owe me. In them, the kids look happy and healthy. That has to be enough. Jennifer says the grief comes in waves. And she's right. Some days I'm fine, confident in my choices, and secure in my boundaries. Other days I doubt everything. Wonder if I should have just paid the money and kept the peace. But then I remember my mother's hand hitting my face. Remember Charlotte's threats and manipulations. Remember the years of being diminished and dismissed and used. I remember that love without respect isn't really love at all. I built a good life through hard work and sacrifice. I surrounded myself with people who value me for who I am, not for what I can provide. I learned that protecting myself isn't selfish, it's survival. My family made their choices. They chose money over relationship, entitlement over understanding, control over connection. I made different choices. I chose my dignity, my safety, and my peace. Sometimes the price of freedom is loneliness, but I'd rather be alone than constantly diminished. I'd rather have silence than abuse disguised as love. The cameras are still in my office, a silent sentinel, a reminder of the day I stopped shrinking and started living. Charlotte wanted me to pay for her divorce. In the end, we all paid different prices. She paid with her children's custody and her comfortable lifestyle. Mom paid with criminal charges and a broken relationship with her daughter. I paid with family connections and the dream of what we could have been if they'd chosen differently. But I kept my self-respect. I kept my savings. I kept my boundaries. And ultimately, that's worth more than any amount of money I could have given. In a world that often conflates family with unconditional obligation, where do you draw your line? What would you sacrifice to protect your peace, and what would you fight to keep?